You're good to go.
Excellent. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. It is shockingly 1 o'clock p.m. precisely. And we are live on a digital platform. And present here, we have folks from all over. Here from City Council, we have myself, Liz Mealy, as well as Randy Allison, both members of the Finance Committee, and Bonnie Katz is joining us too, from the full body of council. From the administration, we have so many people. We have Cynthia Hart from HR, Valerie Fessler from Community Development, Melanie, it's shut, correct? Okay. Here to discuss the grant administration element of city government, Jamie Livermore from Finance, Derek Slaughter from the Mayor's Office, Justin Snyder from the Police, Lisa Lyons, who I believe is also here as part of CDBG. Is that correct, Valerie, or is she here for? Yeah. Okay. And Sam Ox from the Fire Department. I don't believe I missed anybody aside from Janice Frank, our wonderful city clerk, who's joining us. Just keep an eye on things and make sure we don't do anything too terrible. Thank you, Janice. Anyway, let me see here. We're going to begin with we have 6 items on our agenda today. We're going to move on from item number 1 for the moment and begin with item number 2, which is an overview of the grant administrator role. This is something that we'd actually requested as a presentation. Valerie was until recently serving as a grant administrator for the city of Williamsport, and now she has moved into another position, and Melanie is taking her place. And we had sort of requested an update on where exactly we were with grant applications, what sort of financial benefit we'd seen so far, et cetera, et cetera. Valerie, I'm assuming that's the presentation that you're making today, correct?
Yes.
Right. Sorry, I was like, man, I hope I didn't misunderstand. Right. Anyway, so then we can go ahead and kick it off, please.
Great, thank you. Yes, President Yoder specifically asked me to share what the goals of the position, the grants administrator position, were, what some of the key achievements were, and then what the future of the position will look like. And Liz, I will also send a few documents to you and other members of council so you can have them to refer to, and I can share my screen. I just have kind of a bullet point list to review. I can share my screen if you're interested in seeing sort of some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. And is it big enough?
Well, nothing's big enough for my vision, so I think you're fine.
Okay. I can. Can everyone else see it?
Yes. Yep. We can see it. Yeah.
Okay, great. So just to give you an update on what some of the goals of this position were, one of the primary goals was to centralize grant management within the city. So Liz, as I know you're familiar with, many of the grants being administered throughout the city were it was a decentralized process. The mayor had many grants on his plate that he was administering. The police folks, specifically Captain Ottaviano, was administering a large $1.5 million grant that the police had. Chief Sam and his folks were administering fire grants. So bringing that all into one sort of centralized area was one of the main priorities of this position. And not only just bringing it in, but then also giving the grants administrator the opportunity to manage the grants, steward the donors, do the reporting, and then keep a main, kind of master calendar of everything that was happening. The other thing would be to identify new and expanded grant opportunities. So taking, what we're already doing, making sure that the similar grants opportunities and new grants opportunities are on our radar for the coming years, and making a plan about what projects we want to fund, what projects we want to see funded. Providing one point of contact for Delta Development and Keller, I think, is one of the major accomplishments of this position. I know both Delta and Keller have done a lot of good work on behalf of the city in years past, but they've had to work with probably 15 or 20 different points of contact in the time that they were doing work for us. So having one specific point of contact has been wonderful for them, has given them, the opportunity to be better at their jobs and a little bit more efficient in getting them what they needed. So some of the key achievements from a monetary standpoint, there's about $5.8 million in grants that this position applied for in the first half of 2024 that we're waiting for awards to come out periodically. There are $19.4 million in grants that were awarded to the city that is currently being managed by this position. So those are grants that perhaps came in while I was here in the first 6 months of the year, or that the city had prior to me being here, but that needed to be, paid attention to and managed appropriately. $1.1 million in total grants that were closed out, and you can see on the report here, these are all grants from various years. Many were grants that we received even prior to Mayor Slaughter being in administration, things that needed to be brought back up to the forefront, paid attention to, reimbursed, invoiced for, those types of things. So a little over $1 million in grants that were just sort of kind of hanging out there waiting to be closed out, if that makes sense.
Hey, Valerie?
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? That $600,000 from 2016, was that the scoreboard?
Yes.
Okay. And so it is fully closed out.
Yes, we are at the very, very final stages of closing that out, but we have received the final, basically the final document that says we're going to be in receipt of that funding in the next couple weeks.
Okay, great. Awesome.
That's exciting, right?
Yeah, no, I saw that number and was like, that number looks real familiar. I hope it's what I think it is.
Yeah, yeah. That one was definitely a long time coming. There was a Brandon Park Phase 1 development project in there, was an old one, Liz, that you might be familiar with, and some grants from the First Community Foundation as well that were out there. So I'm glad to have gotten those taken care of.
Okay.
New, revitalized, and expanded relationships with some local funding agencies. I know that that's one of the things that council had mentioned multiple times to me was having a local presence and expanding relationships with local funders, which is something that we've definitely worked hard on in the first 6 months of this year. And then, as President Yoder says, acquiring some of that low-hanging fruit. So working with some local foundations and some other funders on some smaller projects that might not necessarily be on the radar of either Keller or Delta. And then what I think is one of the most important is relationship building. So local, regional, state leaders, business owners, members of the community, the county planning office, just the level of relationship building that I think is so critical in order for us to continue to acquire this funding and then also appropriately steward it, and just to have those relationships with people who are going to reach out to us and say, hey, did you see that XYZ funding is available? Those types of things. So I know that Mayor Slaughter has spent a significant amount of time on relationship building in the first 4 years that he was here, and really kind of laid the groundwork for that to be an easy one for me to pick up on, and now for Melanie to pick up on. But I think that we've been able to take some things off of his calendar so that he can refocus, and that's been really helpful in some of those meetings. Speaking of operational efficiency, we project that 10 to 15 hours per month of the mayor's time was being spent on administering grants, and we've been able to take that off of his plate, as well as 10 to 15 hours a month from the finance department, and approximately 20 hours a month from police, and approximately 20 hours a month from fire. So we're happy to be able to have those folks be focusing on their main priorities within the city. Any questions, Liz, before I move on to the future?
Just that, I guess I'm trying to understand, as someone else transitions into this role, are these continued expectations of ours, this relationship building / maintenance with local and state legislators? Or is that, I guess, in part because, while I think it's a positive thing for everyone within city government to have some level of positive relationships, the administration component, and to a certain extent, even the application component of grants, strike me as a different thing from that, which seems to me like more of a consultant / mayoral role.
It's a balance. And, you know, obviously I'll default to Mayor Slaughter ultimately on how he wants his position to be managed. But the way that I look at it is there is definitely value in having our consultants doing that relationship building for us. But the reality of the situation is that, you know, when Senator Yaw's office has a grant seminar at Lycoming College, it's definitely our grants administrators' face that we want to be there, not necessarily the folks from Delta. And does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not saying the person should be invisible.
No.
I'm just right. That I guess when I was visualizing the position, that building relationships thing seemed, you know, the sort of like attending meet and greets, yada yada yada, seemed to me to be more the job of either the mayor or a consultant, right? And then but that's not me saying that that it should go one way or the other. I'm just kind of asking what the thought of the administration was. Will that continue to be a key part of the grant administrator's role, or
I don't think it's so much the meet and greets. It's more if we're looking at, as like Valerie was saying, so Senator Yaw's staff says, hey, we see that you're applying for a DCNR grant. Can you stop over and just tell us a little bit more of the details, and we'll offer a letter of support. The higher level stuff, I think what you're talking about, you know, myself or Senator Yaw, Rep Flick, or whatever the case might be, yes, those will still be obviously the role of the elected officials and things along those lines. However, if it's just sort of the day-to-day run-of-the-mill grant things that either me or, you know, Captain Taviano or others we're doing, that is what we've passed off to Valerie and of course now Melanie, where I don't have to go over and meet with one of Rep Flick's staff or Senator Yaw's staff. They can go over, explain the grant that we're looking for, get the letter of support, and then put the packet together. So that type of stuff will continue as we see it.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. I wasn't really sure. It seemed like a lot to ask of a single position, you know, to be both a nuts and bolts person and then the big smiling face. So
yes, that's a great way to say that. I think it's been a really interesting kind of collaboration in my experience. So our Delta specifically, when we work with them, they definitely have a level of knowledge that they bring to the table. For example, when we're talking to them about a specific grant award, they may come back to us and say, hey, what we're hearing based on the conversations we're having in Harrisburg is this isn't going to be awarded until after the election, or what we're hearing is they're prioritizing X, or what we're hearing is they're prioritizing Y. So those types of things are valuable, but also you know, Melanie and I would have quarterly meetings with Senator Yaw's office where we would go in and kind of give them the heads up on everything that we're working on citywide, so that when they might be in a conversation with someone from Lycoming College and Lycoming College says to them, hey, we're talking to the city about doing XYZ, they don't feel like they're blindsided. So it's almost like we kind of keep them apprised of things on a local level, and then they do the same for us, where when we're having those candid conversations with them, we might also say, hey, let me also tell you about this really cool thing that our friends from the fire department are doing. And they'll say, oh, wow, that's really interesting because there's going to be new funding for XYZ thing for fire equipment. So it's almost like this big relationship where I almost think this grant administrator almost like closed the circle, because Mayor Slaughter is out there doing the high level things, and then the lobbyists are doing the things in both Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. And this position kind of closes the gap, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So future planning. I know I mentioned this in another conversation that we spoke about recently, Liz. I think it'll be important for the grants administrator to collaborate with Community and Economic Development Office for citywide strategy as far as grants management is concerned, both a 1 and 5 year plan for how we're going to all work together to accomplish projects and work with complementary grant sources. Work to develop and implement grant management policies and procedures to streamline processes between the grants administrator and city departments. This is really just a really fancy way of saying, here's what it's going to look like when we get a grant for your department, and here are what the expectations are of how you will work with us so that we can remain compliant. Continue to build relationships with city department heads to gain understanding of, funding and needs. That's just an ongoing conversation to make sure that we're aware of what's coming up so that we can be on the lookout for funding. Continue to build and maintain relationships with all sorts of constituents throughout the city, all sorts of stakeholders, and then also with the local, state, and federal funding agencies, just to be aware of future opportunities and how we can potentially capitalize on those for the success of Williamsport. And Liz, we did prepare a pretty extensive spreadsheet for you with all of the current grant opportunities, and I'll send that in a separate email so that you can take a look at that and share that with anyone on council as you see appropriate.
That, well, I would, if I were you, Randy, unless you think differently, I would say that probably should just go out to everyone on council.
Okay, great.
It seems like there are just a lot of questions about what we have in the works, what we've applied for, what we haven't applied for. I know, for instance, that we emailed you a couple of months ago asking about the Safe Streets funding that's available through the state. And you had told me that we were working on an application for that, correct?
Yep.
And so, I think it's useful to everyone so that, theoretically, presuming that we all open the email, read it, and download the information, we can use that as a reference point.
Yeah.
Instead of emailing you to find out, emailing you or Melanie to find out whether or not you've, moved on this or that item that we've happened to see in the paper.
Yeah, absolutely. We did apply for that Safe Streets for All grant as well. You'll see it in the spreadsheet.
Okay. Great. In the spreadsheet, or I suppose, could I ask specific to that grant, sort of what's the application that we submitted? What is it that we're thinking of doing with that grant funding?
Sure. So specifically that grant funding, if you just hold on one second, and Melanie can feel free to jump in. She worked hand in hand with Delta to prepare that application, but particularly that will give us an overarching, so it's basically going to be a planning grant, a planning document. So that will give us an overarching plan for how we should be looking at street improvements, bike lanes, those types of things. And it is going to be, there's no construction in that grant. It'll just be all planning. It'll just be an all planning grant.
Okay. And there's no reason to expect that the funding would evaporate before we completed the planning process, right?
No. And then by having that planning grant, essentially what we'll do is, the funding agencies that we'll be looking for to apply for grants for the funding piece of it, just they like to see that we took the time to get the planning grant and to do the planning, and to have the work go into it. And that bodes well for future grant applications for us, whether or not they be from PennDOT or whoever we look to, DCED, for some of that construction funding.
Okay. Yeah, because I know from the very limited reading I'd done about that, the statewide Safe Streets grants, it looked as though, say, Lancaster had gotten, I think, $12 million or something. Or $6 million for Safe Streets. I don't remember whether it was 6 or 12, but anyway,
it was a pretty big application. I want to say it was a $3 million. $3 million.
It's right there in the middle. It's that federal one. It's like 445,000 in the middle of the spreadsheet there.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at a Google.
Yeah, I think Valerie switched her screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yes, this would be, as Valerie was mentioning, right there, it's sort of the middle of the screen, that federal Safe Streets, 445,000 for the action plan.
Okay. Yeah.
To develop it, the planning, and then that would then open us up, as Valerie noted, hopefully to future grants, whether they're federal or state. We'll show them that we did the plan. Here's how we plan to implement it with additional grant dollars. Yeah,
I guess that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is to benefit from federal funds for the bigger ticket items, because it stands to be. And I think that we have a lot of potential to meet some of our streets needs and sidewalk needs as well. That is to say, to sort of take care of some things that we might be doing anyway. If with a good safe streets plan in hand. So it could be an exciting, way to get a lot of work done in the city. If we can, right. But I guess I'm just trying to visualize how quickly we can make that a reality, because I feel like safe streets are really becoming a pretty major issue in our area.
Yep.
And and that we need to address them as quickly as.
We're exploring Vision Zero as well, so we're looking into that simultaneously with, we've already applied for safe streets. We're also exploring Vision Zero, which is again the pedestrian safety and bike safety and all of that as well. So
right. Yeah, I guess I think that we have not benefited from great statewide policies on safe streets so far. So if we can try to take some of that stuff into our own hands, it will be much better for our citizens. Okay, all right. Sorry to interrupt again. What else would you like to point out, Valerie?
No, I think that's it. Unless you have any specific questions.
Randy, anything that you'd like to ask? He's out there somewhere.
I would just note, if I could, just that, as Valerie mentioned, that this has been a huge asset to the administration and across the board for our employees. It's taken so much time, and just to have it all, as noted, to have it sit in one location and have a direct contact for that. And I know Valerie's spoken with other grant administrators, around the state and outside the state, actually. And it's hugely beneficial. So I just had that little anecdote in there, and I'm sure, others can attest to that as well. Not that we're here to do that, just I wanted to make that point that I thank City Council for creating this position, because it's extremely beneficial.
That's good. No, I mean, I'm glad to see that so far this has been an effective position. I'm excited. I mean, I do think that, for better or for worse, budgetarily, we sort of try to get an early sense of return on investment. But this is not a position that I think we can get a really effective sense of ROI on in the first year necessarily. Do you know what I mean? That it'll sort of be about, because we will now have an opportunity to watch how two different employees function in the position, which I think is important in terms of, because you can get one person who either really doesn't fit or really does fit in the position, and that can change your impression of how successful it will be. But I certainly think that a year in, indicators are that this has been a really positive thing for the city. And I appreciate you guys documenting that so intensively. And I look forward to reviewing the documentation more too, obviously, when we receive it via email. But no, I think this seems to be a really positive step, and I look forward to seeing how it plays out here over the next year or so with someone new in the position, and if we need to, redefine any policies, any kind of job description thing, I think we'll need to figure out sort of fine tuning it and the requirements as we move along. But I think that will, to a certain extent, happen organically as well. This is just a position. I don't know. Have we ever had a grants administrator in the city before?
That I don't know.
I can answer that. There really wasn't, because I was involved many years ago with a grant writing for the arts, and this goes back about 40 years. And there really wasn't anybody that you had to go to in the city or even the county. So it was a lot of work. And for me, having a grant writer is not only the writing, but also to maintain. And it's amazing how many little grants can be out there that you're not even aware of. And when somebody is spending their time researching a lot of things, say the fire department is looking for so-and-so, such and such, the grant writer can research this and find out more information and work in that area. And for us with the streets and parks, it's there's a lot of grants up there that are not being utilized that we can attain. And this is so important, but the most important thing is somebody to maintain the grant. I think anybody in any department that has done the grants realizes the amount of time to maintain and make sure it's being allocated. So I think, I've been a strong proponent of this from the get-go, because I think it's worth its weight in gold when it's utilized thoroughly.
And I think you'll see, Liz, when you have the opportunity to review the spreadsheet that I'm going to send you, from an ROI standpoint, the position has billed over $1 million in grants for reimbursement that were outstanding, and the position is currently administering almost $52 million of active grants. So I think that the spreadsheet will give you a pretty clear understanding of what the return will look like.
Sorry, I was struggling to get off mute there. Awesome, fantastic. Okay, Randy and Bonnie, do you have any other comments right now?
I think it's great. Everything I've heard is great. Things we've considered, but I really love the coordination of resources and communication. I think that's so efficient and so clear. It's gonna, centralize everything, like you said. So I think that's the most important thing we're getting out of this, as well as all the hard work you're going to be pouring into it. So kudos. And I think this is exactly what we've been looking for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Chief Sam has his hand up. Chief Sam, your hand
I'm
up.
sorry, Sam.
That's okay. I just wanted to reiterate what's already been said. I mean, our experience, I was a little hesitant in the beginning when they discussed creating this position, but since this position has come into effect, Valerie and Mel both, I mean, they have been outstanding to work with. They've really taken a lot of things off of our plate that is more in their wheelhouse, and really ran with it. It's just been a wonderful experience working with the two of them. And I will have to say that is probably one of the best investments. That position is one of the best investments this city has ever made, bar none.
Thank you.
Excellent. I'm pleased to hear it. The idea of centralizing what I know was, I have heard a lot of stories of very bad grant reporting and administration being done within the city. So I'm excited to have a point person who is in charge of that, and who is actually making sure that we're following through. Because the worst thing in the world is to get the money to do some really significant project, do the project, and then fail on the reporting end. And I think being able to centralize that is key. Anyway, I think this has been a really good discussion. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add? Hearing nothing, if that's okay, then we'll move on to item number 3 do you want to just move on to item number 5, Valerie, while you're here?
Sure.
Okay, let's just do that.
Sure. So in front of you, you have a resolution authorizing the forgiveness of debts owned by the estate of Marion Lohner. And if you have the resolution in front of you, I'll just give you sort of the highlights. So Marion Lohner is an individual who was the recipient of a home rehab project through the city funding approximately 20 years ago. There was a $13,030 deferred mortgage loan, a $5,000 grant, and a $1,355.75 grant. So Mrs. Lohner has since passed away, and the intent of this program really is to encourage long-term residents in the home. So these mortgages or loans are taken out on these properties when home rehab projects are done. And again, this was many, many years ago, before I think any of us in the administration were involved. But essentially, Mrs. Lohner has passed away, and this resolution is asking us to forgive her debts that would essentially be coming due here in this fall, and will be the responsibility of her family if not forgiven.
Got it. Randy, do you have a copy of this resolution?
No, I got
Yeah.
a double copy of something else, but I did not get a copy of this resolution.
Yeah, so could you send it through, Valerie? I think just email it out to all of us, just so.
Sure.
And Janice, I'm guessing that you probably have it, and maybe there was just some sort of glitch on Dropbox. But what comes up when you click on the forgiveness of debts owed by the estate of Marion Lohner is a repeat of a fire ordinance further down the line. So maybe we could just change the upload to Dropbox too. Anyway, so you said this debt originated when again?
So here, I will actually
Screen share it.
just pull this up on my computer and then share my screen again.
Okay.
And then be able to take a look right at it. I'll give you a second to take a look. So 2024 is when the debts were incurred.
2024?
I'm sorry, 2004.
2004. Okay.
Let me know when you're ready for me to scroll.
Okay. So we're looking at about, looks like $27,000.
Yeah.
Correct?
Well, the grants, the 5,000 and the 1355 were grants. So they would have been forgiven after 5 years of residency in the property. So really, we're only looking at the $20,780.68.
I'm sorry, and that would not have been forgiven? Period? Or
So
sorry, I know I was busy also searching for this document while you were talking about it. So if I'm going back over details, I apologize.
oh no, that's okay. That's okay. So the forgiveness period for this loan, or for this loan, would be expiring shortly here in 2024.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, so this is basically a paperwork issue.
Yeah.
And we've gotten permission from HUD?
So the permission from HUD is not necessary because the application of the loan to the property is a city policy, not a HUD requirement. So
Okay.
this is outside of there. This is a Derek Slaughter decision, city council decision.
And we consulted with Austin on this as well.
Yes.
With this, when he took a look at this and agreed with this approach.
Yeah.
Do we have any more of these out there? And
Yes.
Are we currently still doing this? Because we've never been notified about this that I recall.
Yes, there are other agreements like this in existence. We are currently in the process in our department of rewriting the contracts to change the way that we're handling this, Randy, in consultation with Austin. So essentially, the way that I understand the guidelines is the way that Austin words it in the resolution here is to encourage long-term residents in the local home. So essentially, it is my understanding that previous city staff members wanted to provide the funds needed in order to rehabilitate the home, but also essentially put something in place so that a home rehab wasn't completed and then the homeowner immediately turned around and sold the property, is my understanding. So really these loans were in order to encourage long-term residency in the home. But we are currently working on changing the way that this is handled.
And
In a way
most
that
you'll see, oops, sorry, go ahead, Valerie, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, in a way that I think will better benefit the homeowner while still maintaining the interest of the city and following the guidance of the funding.
Mhm.
Does that make
Usually you'll
sense?
see like 5 years and like 20% each year, you know, until that 5 year. And that's what we're working on with Austin right now, because this, like this case right here, which I wasn't aware of until this situation came up, it just, the way that was done previously doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and really nobody's doing it that way. And so Austin's walking us through an updated process that would be cleaner and buttoned up much better.
Essentially, when I spoke to Austin about this specific loan, he said, really, it should have just been written to read, at 20 years, all loans will be forgiven. But it wasn't. It was written the way that we're reading it. So we're taking these sort of on a case-by-case basis, keeping in mind what's in the best interest of the family. In this specific case, you know, Mary Loner has passed away, and there's an attorney working to pass the deed of her home onto her family, and this is a barrier in order for them to do that. So that's why we, you know, with the permission of the mayor and consultation with Austin, we're hoping that we could forgive this debt so that her son particularly doesn't have to incur this debt on her behalf in order to take over her home.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I just think it's important that we, going forward, have a clear grasp on on the whole procedure, I think. But it sounds like, I mean, you moved pretty quickly on that. I think it'd just be good for us on council to have a discussion about it as well, how it came to be and what it's going to look like going forward. If now, is this something we're required to do, or are we just
No.
with CDBG money? And okay,
No, it's not.
I mean, but it is something that's relatively common, correct?
I believe that it's common for, again, my experience in this department has been 6 weeks short, but in my consultation with CEDACOG specifically, and with other third-class cities like ours who run similar programs, I've only found instances of loans being completely forgiven after 5 years.
Okay.
With a 20% per year, essentially, payback. That makes sense. So I have not seen anything, and neither has CEDACOG in their work that they shared with me. So we're definitely moving to rewrite the agreements moving forward to go to more of that common 5-year model.
and who would do they apply for this? Is that how it's done, or?
As far as the home rehabs, yeah, absolutely. So it's the folks who are applying for the CDBG or home funding to have rehab projects done to their home. The city is then, in the past, had been taking out these loans against the home for the 20-year 3% deferred interest.
All right.
So for this, I'm happy to have more conversation, Randy, about some of the other ones and our plans moving forward. If you would be interested, we can set something up to discuss. For the specific instance of Mrs. Lohner and her estate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we need to.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not concerned about this, given that they were all set up to be forgiven
right
here, frankly, in the next couple of months anyway. But I do think, I mean, especially if we have a bunch of 20-year forgiveness period loans out there, that we're likely to wind up in this situation again at some point, probably. And so I think we need to develop some kind of a policy on how we're handling it, right? And or decide if we go back for other, if we are generally speaking doing a 5-year loan period at this point, even for the deferred mortgage, and then whether we go back and revise all existing agreements to mirror that, right? Or forgive agreements that have already passed the 5-year mark. I would say if there were a substantial amount of financing invested in a mortgage, that personally I would say 10 years might be a better number, but if that's not what anyone else is doing, then there's probably a good reason for it. So but anyway, this clearly, this is kind of a no-brainer. But I do think that we should try to figure out some way of dealing with these older agreements that we have out there so that this doesn't become an issue again and again, right?
Yeah.
And because, I mean, that's just, that's difficult for the people for the family members, right, to have to sort out and deal with after losing a family member. And B, it's just, we should have an automatic sort of thing. Like, this is just, okay, you've met these criteria, so you're good, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway. Bonnie, anything you'd like to chime in about?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Randy, anything further?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then we will move along. Next item on the agenda is Chief Ongst, an ordinance transfer ordinance number 13.
Hi guys, this is Jamie. Chief Sam has asked me to just give you a little rundown of the ordinance, and then he's gonna jump in with his explanation of the purchases he's proposing this ordinance for. This ordinance is for a proposed transfer from the sale of surplus property line item to go to the fire capital purchases line item. Fire has recently sold engine number 1 and would like to utilize $280,500 of the proceeds for some unforeseen purchases. Also, some of the proceeds would be going to Brindley, who is the company they contracted with to orchestrate the sale of this engine. I do believe the sale of this engine and some other engines in their fleet were discussed at budget last year with Tracy, and then Sam had some items he needs to purchase and would like to use some of those funds for those purchases.
Okay. Sam, is there anything else that you want to say?
Sure. Just, the money that we're looking for out of this is to cover upfitting for the 2 new engines, some upfitting, radio installs, graphics for a new utility vehicle that we are purchasing. and also upfitting graphics and radios and lights for a new command vehicle. And then in addition to that, there's also the fee, as Jamie noted, that there's a fee for selling engine 1 and engine 3.1 that we have to pay. So, and that all amounts to about $280,500.
And that fee is not automatically subtracted from our return on it?
No. So they are basically kind of like an intermediary. They post pictures of our truck, and
Third party.
They're a third party company that we had entered into last year. And then in return, we get the check. We receive the check from the company who's purchasing it, and then we forward that their fee to Brindley Mountain.
Got it. So just to be clear, am I right in perceiving this ordinance to indicate that we got substantially more money for the trucks than we were expecting to?
Yes. So
or that we were budgeting for anyway.
Well, initially, the 400,000 was initially for, there was some miscommunication between Tracy Rash and I. She assumed that it was just the tower. So that's where the 400,000 comes from. That she had initially, like for the sale of the trucks. So that was, we ended up selling the truck for 501. And then we sold engine 3.1 for 380,000.
Okay.
Engine 1.
What did I say?
Engine 3.1.
I'm sorry. We sold engine 1 for $380,000.
Okay.
And then,
so,
I was just going to say, and then we sold engine 3.1 for $30,000.
So that's a total take of 910, right?
Yes.
Okay. So where's the rest of that? If the sale of surplus property line only increases to 680, where's the rest of that money? Sorry.
I can answer that.
That sounded more accusatory than it was meant to. I'm just trying to figure out what the numbers moving around here mean.
So the ordinance has to follow the approved budget, but what will happen, so that's why there's only 400,000 on there, because that's what was listed in the approved budget for last year. What will happen is the remainder of the funds will just roll over to be used to offset the capital savings for next year. It'll just go into the capital savings and stay there for 2025's purchases.
Okay, got it. So basically we're increasing the line by 280,000, and then we're putting an additional 230,000 basically into 2025's capital purchases.
Yes, it will just roll right into the capital purchases.
Okay.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. Got it. And the 280 is, so then I guess my follow-up question on that, Chief, is this 280,000 was money that you didn't know we'd be getting to do these upfits. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is to what extent this is found money that will lower our financial obligations for 25, and to what extent we were already counting on this funding and planning to do precisely these things with it.
Yeah. So we had all along assumed that knew that we were going to sell the trucks. All of our apparatus. So engine 1, engine 3.1, engine 2.1, and tower 1. The miscommunication happened there with Tracy and I. She assumed that we were only selling tower 1, but so there was like a communication breakdown there a little bit between us, and it wasn't shown on the capital projects budget.
Okay, got it. So, okay. But so you would always plan to use some of the proceeds then for the upfit?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay. It does seem though, like even on the presumption that we were only going to sell tower 1, we still got 25% more for it than we expected. Yes?
Yes,
So there is a little bit of a found money element, but not, certainly not a $510,000 worth of found money element to this.
right.
Okay, all right. Okay, Randy, questions from you?
No, I don't have any.
Got it. Just trying to wrap my head around what this does
Yeah.
for us budgetarily. Sam is all that I'm, and what it will change for us in 25 too. Okay. Then that sounds, I think that's pretty cut and dry. I'm glad to hear that we got more for the trucks than we thought we were going to. Yeah. What was just out of curiosity, what is the finder's fee?
For engine one, again, we sold that for 380,000. And we owe them 19,000 for engine one.
So about a 5% fee.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then for engine 3.1, since it was under a certain amount, it was a 5% fee, or I'm sorry, a 10% fee. We sold it for 30,000. We owe Brindley Mountain 3,000.
Got it. Okay. And then they also sold the tower, or?
Well, we sold the tower, but through them.
Yeah.
And I forget how much that was that we.
Probably 25.
Yeah. 20 something.
Anyway, yeah, just asking for the, to get a sense of our benefit there. And that certainly seems well worth it. Okay. All right. That's everything I have. If I don't hear anything from anybody else here at the meeting, then we'll move along. Thanks, Chief, and excellent work. I'm glad to hear that we made some money that we weren't expecting to make on the trucks.
Thank you.
Okay. So our final semi-action item today is item number 4, a resolution authorizing the renewal of a health insurance policy for retired city employees. Ms. Hart?
Give me just a moment here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Before you have the resolution, I spoke with Austin. He just wanted me to kind of give you guys a heads up because it will also come on again in budget. And so wanted to get this before you just to let you know that the plans were changing in regards to the cost for each individual. One of them, which of course is for the police, that one's going up $38. The other one is for fire. It's going up $36 per individual. The things that have changed, basically, there is a change in regards to the coverage, what's called the gap coverage. And basically that's the difference between what we paid for this year and what we're going to pay for next year. A lot of that is due to the revamp of Medicare. And so the diabetic supplies went down. And then as far as they also introducing a $2,000 maximum out-of-pocket threshold for Part D. And so that has also changed. And if you're looking at the attachments to that resolution, you can see where it starts with the coverage gap phase. It actually is deleted on the upcoming because all of that information is now being maxed out at the $2,000 versus the $8,000 it was this year. So just wanted to get that before you. And so that we could go ahead and renew these particular city plans.
Got it. So what's the financial impact of the city then? Given the scope of how many people we're covering?
So right now, looks like we're covering about 69 people on one plan. And I don't have a number on the other plan at this time, but I will have that for you going forward. It's like I said, it's a difference of the $36 and $38 difference for each individual one right now.
Okay, and that's an annual difference, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, sorry. So relatively minimal. We're talking about maybe a $5,000 difference in cost.
What we're paying for now. Roughly, yes.
Okay. And the benefit to the retirees sounds like it might be substantial, right?
Correct.
So I think that's maybe not exactly a win-win, but a near draw for the city and a win for our retirees. How does it work when we, so to speak, upgrade coverage at an additional cost to the city if, and maybe this is a better question for Austin at Thursday's meeting, but let me kind of play it out. That is to say, we've somewhat improved our retiree coverage over what it has been in the past, right? If at some point it becomes financially advantageous for us to drop back to a $4,000 out of pocket, for instance, do we have to get approval from the retirees even though we've chosen to improve the benefit? Or can we do that at will?
That is going to be an Austin question.
Okay. Just kind of, you know what I mean? It's like any negotiation the city participates in. If we've effectively sweetened the pot, I'm not sure whether that means that we are then obliged to maintain that level of support moving forward, or whether there's some sort of baseline we can fall back to without approval. Randy, does that strike you as a potentially valid question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. If so, can you help me remember to ask Austin on Thursday?
Yeah.
I'll make a note on my side, but I'm still afraid I'll forget. But yeah, I think that's my only concern. This seems like a relatively modest uptick in cost, and I'm presuming that our cost, that is to say that the alternative was something that we would have had to go and request permission from the retirees for. Is that accurate?
As far as what they want to pay?
No, I guess what I'm saying is, the reason and I apologize, my computer died, so I'm sort of flicking back and forth on my phone between the documents, the insurance documents, and the conversation here. But the coverage was changing. I'm guessing this was basically the best package that would increase our costs the least while continuing to provide the level of coverage that we've guaranteed them. Is that correct?
Okay, yes.
Okay. And so
If it is an option for them to actually, like, we're just providing it, so it is an option. These are the two options that we will be giving them.
Oh, both of these will remain options.
Right. So
Okay.
one is police and then one is fire.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, sorry, trying to logic this out on my phone. It's not working real well for me. So they can stick with the original and they can.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. No, this is it right here. This is
okay.
I apologize. I misunderstood. Yeah, no, they're changing the current plans that we have right now in place. These are what they're changing them to for next year.
Got it. Okay. All right. And so basically what I'm saying is we were in the position of upgrade coverage slightly or not meet our obligation to our retirees. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's pretty cut and dried. All right. Then I will remember to ask Austin that question on Thursday. Randy, anything? Randy or Bonnie, I suppose, any questions that you might have?
Liz, I have a question. You know, I'm really kind of confused. I don't understand. It says here, whereas in connection with policy renewal, recent changes to Medicare plans have necessitated updates to our current health insurance policy. Would you explain to me what that really means? Are we going, are we giving the retirees what is comparable to Medicare?
So there was a law, and don't quote me because I don't know exactly what day it was, but anyway, it's the upcoming. What they did was in Medicare, they went in and revamped Medicare. So now Part D, what we give as our benefits, it includes Part D. Okay,
Okay, so what you're doing is we're paying for the Part D. Is that it? Is that what you're saying?
yes, yeah, we've been paying for it.
Yeah, but now it's gonna be higher for the Part D.
Well, it's not necessarily going to be higher. The insurance itself is going to be higher for the things that they're adding. What they did was they changed because whereas a person normally would have like a $8,000 maximum out-of-pocket expense, that went down to $2,000. So they've capped it. So in turn, the benefits got better, but now the cost on our end is higher.
Okay, and what you're saying then is, are you trying to tell us that legally we have to increase our cost to be comparable to the Part D?
I'm saying that Part D is included in part of the Freedom
But
Blue
that's
package.
right, but that's the part that's gone up and changed, right?
Yes,
Okay, and with those changes, there's also an increase in price, right?
yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand. Insurance confuses the hell out of me, but anyhow,
But I'm
so
just saying the price of the changes, it includes that, but that's not everything. I mean, the whole program itself, they've got 0 vaccines now and preventive services. They've changed the fitness program from Silver Blue or Blue Sneakers, I believe, or Silver Sneakers to the Nationwide Fitness Network. If you'll look at do you have a copy of
yes,
the
I do.
resolution?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so
I need
everything, okay, so everything on the 2025 column that's in red, those are all the changes. And then if you look at the side on the 2024 side, that's what we're currently offering and paying for now.
Okay. Okay, so it's, okay, let's go to, pages aren't marked. Coverage gap stage, okay? In 2024 is what you're saying we covered, but then go to 2025 and that portion is not applicable. This is where I was confused. Do you see
Okay,
what I'm saying? It says coverage gap stage, retail, mall order, mail order.
right, and that's the part of it, that's what I'm saying to you, is that it's now capped at $2,000. There's no, if you look on the left-hand column, it breaks it down, like if they had like a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 3, this is what they were paying for their drugs.
Okay,
Okay, so now that's no longer there. It's not capped, I mean, it's capped now at $2,000, period. There's no
okay.
tiers.
They can't go over 2,000 then. The rest will come out of their pocket?
Correct.
Okay, now, okay, because I was looking at, trying to understand this, looking at this and it really confused me. I didn't understand it. Now I understand what you're saying with capping. Okay. So really, they're still getting the same coverage and maybe a little bit more.
Correct.
Okay. I think I'm done, Liz. Did we lose everybody?
Liz is on mute.
Oh, geez, I did that. Sorry about that. I was, yeah, when I'm kind of moving around on my phone, looking at things, I'm afraid that I'm making noise tapping on the screen. So I try to mute it. Anyway, thanks, Bonnie. Thanks, Cynthia, for bearing with us. I think all of us have probably in recent years had some sort of negative interactions with health insurance that make us nervous about fully
Mhm.
understanding the parameters. Both from the payee end and from the recipient end. Anyway, if there are no further questions about that, we can move on to the final. Well, we can return to item number 1 here briefly. Anything else about item 4? Okay. Returning to item number 1 really quickly, which is our reappointment to the water and sewer authorities of William Erdl. Mr. Erdl wasn't able to attend today's meeting. I think we can safely say he's served on the water and sewer authorities for quite a long time. And I think all of us are very familiar with what an asset he's been to the boards. But we can, I think there will be some discussions if he can attend Thursday's meeting virtually or in person. Of course, that would be great. But if that won't work out for him, then perhaps relying on our previous experience with Mr. Erdl's performance, we can move forward with the reappointment or not as we choose. So we will not be really addressing item 1 today, I don't think, as an agenda item. And then moving on to item number 6, which is any related items. Does anyone have anything else to introduce? If you were raising your hand, please don't waste your time because I'm on my phone, and just speak up.
I don't have anything.
Okay, great. Then I will see everybody Thursday.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you all.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you guys too. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.